Ubisoft invited me to play a couple hours of Assassin's Creed Shadows early, so here are my thoughts so far. A few disclaimers first though, I'm not being paid for this, this is not an ad, this is not a promotion, this is a preview. I can say whatever I want about the game, positive or negative. I was also not flown out to any fancy event, I played it right over there on my PC, by remoting into one of their workstations on their West Coast servers. And in general, I am a fan of the Assassin's Creed franchise. I've played all of them back from the first one in 2007, all the way up until the most recent ones. I will say that I am a much bigger fan of the older style of Assassin's Creed and haven't been quite as big on the newer RPG direction that they've taken. But I think it's important to note that this preview is coming from someone who has enjoyed these games in the past and is looking forward to Assassin's Creed Shadows. It's also important to mention that the captured footage is in 1080p, and the build I played is a work in progress and is not entirely representative of the final product. With all that being said, let's get into my actual thoughts about what I played. It definitely feels like this game is trying to bridge the gap between the older Assassin's Creed fans and the newer ones, because this is a pretty customizable experience and it feels like there's something in there for everyone who has been a fan of this franchise at some point. The biggest way that you can customize your experience is with the two playable characters. Naoe is the stealth character and is more geared towards the older style of play, whereas Yasuke excels in combat and his playstyle is more similar to the newer style of gameplay. If you're a fan of the way the battles worked in Valhalla, you're going to be right at home with Yasuke. I spent most of my preview time playing as Naoe because that is just the style that I prefer the most, but I did play a little bit of Yasuke just to see how it felt. Yasuke can sneak around and climb on stuff, but he's a lot slower and more lumbering and easier to spot. In fact, the game encourages you to go in loud. You can run through doors. In general, he's just got a lot more health and a lot more attack power because he's focused on combat with stealth taking a back seat. And I will say that my biggest complaint about the game so far is that combat just isn't all that interesting to me. It feels competently enough put together. You've got your blocks, attacks, and parries, along with a series of new special moves that do feel powerful to use. And again, if you're a fan of the direction that they went with Valhalla, this is building upon those systems and you're probably really going to enjoy this. There are an abundance of weapons, skill trees, and skills, so maybe combat does get more interesting the more you dig into it. I didn't have that much time to play around with it, but as I said, I spent most of my time playing as Naoe, and her stealth gameplay is where Shadows really shined for me. This really does feel like we're getting back to the style of Assassin's Creed that I grew up loving. This feature has been in the last couple games, but you can go into the settings and turn on assassinations being auto kills, which helps override some of the RPG elements that I haven't really been a fan of. Moving around as Naoe felt great. You can go prone now, which is a big game changer when it comes to stealth in my opinion. I love stalking through grass, going under huts, finding different pathways to get to my destination. As long as you're undetected, kunai to the head are an instant kill, which feels great. You can trigger explosions from the shadows, and moving in and out of cover felt really natural. Pulling off stealth assassinations felt really good overall. There are completely new elements like being able to put out lights to further use the shadows. Confusingly though, it seems like not all the candles can be extinguished, which is odd, and also one of them was placed by a shrine which triggered a prayer animation, so not all lights are treated equally. If you're covered in darkness, you're pretty much invisible to the guards, at least for a brief second, which kind of gives you a chance to back up if you accidentally wander into their line of sight. If you're in broad daylight, however, the enemies do spot you pretty quickly. And overall, I thought the enemy AI struck a pretty good balance between not being too frustrating, but also keeping me on my toes. Which for me is perfectly fine. These have never really been stealth simulators in my opinion. Assassin's Creed has always been more about making you feel like a cool assassin. That being said though, if you find it too easy, you can scale up the difficulty. In fact, you can scale up the difficulty of stealth and combat all completely separately from each other. This isn't a new feature to the franchise, but I do think it's important to note that if you want one aspect of that to be easier or harder than the other, you can move those independently, which I think is really cool. And if you do get into combat, you can fight your way out, but Naoe is going to get a lot more overwhelmed than Yasuke will. Movement and parkour feel good, they're very fluid, and it works really well with the new grappling hook. Whether you're using it to swing on a tree branch or quickly get up to a rooftop, it always feels like you have pretty quick access to wherever you want to go. But unlike Origins and Odyssey, you can't just climb wherever you want, so again, it kind of helps retain that feel that the older Assassin's Creeds had. You can call on other NPC assassins to do a quick takeout for you or just act as a distraction, which helps. There is a major change to the gameplay from the past couple entries, and that's that you no longer have your bird with you. In the other games, there was an eagle, and you could pop out into an overhead view and kind of use it to scout out an area. This is no longer an option, and I think it's a positive change. Tagging enemies now has to be done from your own perspective, and I think this adds a much needed level of tension to exploring an area because you're never quite sure if you've gotten everybody. If you are spotted as Naoe, you are kind of intended to run away. It creates this interesting cat and mouse where you have to escape, get back into hiding, and then figure out your next approach. I like the balance that they struck because there was definitely tension to getting caught, but it wasn't frustrating because you could pretty easily reset yourself and kind of just try again. Exploration in the RPG era of Assassin's Creed has been a little bit contentious. A common criticism of these games is that they hold your hand just a little bit too much and you're kind of just running around from question mark to question mark on a map. And I do think each entry they've kind of taken taken strides to get away from this and improve their exploration. And while you can go into the accessibility settings and have a more guided experience if you want, the intended experience does seem like they are trying to push more genuine exploration. Going into a synchronization point will show the general direction of unknown locations, so you at least know where to start looking. But locations aren't just immediately dotted on the map, which is nice. Removing the bird in the bird's eye view also affects exploration, because before, when you were going towards an objective, you could just kind of pop into bird overhead view, and then as long as you were kind of close, it would triangulate where you're supposed to go and just mark it on your map. Now that the bird is gone, I thought this was a great opportunity to kind of redesign that system, and this is another area where the game falls a little bit short for me. Your quest giver or NPC or whoever is pointing you in the direction to go will give you the general directions of where your objective is. But once you've found that area on your map, you can ask your scouts to go in and just search that general vicinity, and then it will put your objective exactly where it is on the map. I do kind of like the idea that you're commanding the Assassin's Brotherhood and the whole Brotherhood is helping you achieve your goals. And I don't even necessarily mind main story objectives just being marked on the map as long as there is stuff unmarked to find as you're exploring. But from what I played, the scout system was just such a small formality that it felt underbaked, like there was one more wrinkle to it that should have been there. But maybe my opinion will change with the full game after I get a little bit more time with it. Maybe it evolves more, but from what I played, it just kind of felt a little unfinished. Regardless, once you get to where your objective is, you do have a wide variety of ways that you can approach it, both with your method of infiltration, but also the character that you choose to take on whatever mission you're about to do. And regardless of who you choose, you're never locked into this decision for too long. The game gives you plenty of options to change between them pretty much on the fly. If you're in the open world, you can switch them whenever you want on the menu, and then when you're in a mission at the beginning, it'll usually ask you which one you want to play as, and then depending on how long the mission is, at multiple different key points in that mission, it'll give you the option to switch to the other one or keep playing with who you're already playing as. I got to play the intro sequence for both characters and get a glimpse to what their backstories are, and I am very interested to see where both these characters' stories go, and also how their stories play into the larger Assassin's Creed narrative in general. The game also gives you an interesting option at the beginning where you can either choose to pick your own dialogue at key points in the story, or you can have the game give you the canon dialogue every single time. As someone who's not really a fan of these games being RPGs, I really do like the option to just give me the canon story, see what the creator's intent was. For the sake of the demo, I did choose to pick my own dialogue, and it's not clear how much that actually affects the greater story, but the choice is there if you want it. The game itself looks really good, and with the playtime that I had, ran really well. And coming off of the last two entries, Valhalla and Mirage, both being cross-gen games, I'm excited that Assassin's Creed is finally a current-gen only title. With the playtime that I had, I mostly just did the main mission that was available to me. There were a couple animals that I ran into out in the wild that you can paint. As far as any other side activities, I'm not too sure. I didn't really get to do any of that. So I can't really speak on the side objectives or what you may or may not run into out in the open world. But overall, I really enjoyed my time with the demo, and I am excited for the final release. It really feels like they're trying to get people who were fans of Assassin's Creed previously, who have been out on the more recent open world RPG ones, back into the franchise, while still providing plenty for new fans, especially those of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I do think this is shaping up to be the best Assassin's Creed's been in years. That being said, if you're just not a fan of Assassin's Creed, I don't think this is going to change your mind. I got to play the game for about 3.5 hours, and obviously I can't fit every detail into this video, so if you have any questions, let me know in the comments, and if I have an answer, I'll do the best to answer it. Are you more or less excited for Assassin's Creed Shadows after this preview? And also, if you are excited, which of the two characters do you think you're going to play as the most? Let me know in the comments. If you haven't already, give me a follow.